How would it feel to have a thriving fitness business and have the freedom to enjoy life at the fullest? Well, that is exactly what the Trainer Revenue Multiplier Show is going to give you. My name is Mathew Park. This is Jaime Filer.
Hey guys.
And we are here to serve.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Trainer Revenue Multiplier Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jaime Filer, and I'm joined today by, I do have to say it, she's actually my favorite guest. Everyone, it is my business partner, life partner. So cheesy. Katie Filer, how are you doing?
I'm well. I can't believe I'm on a podcast with the Jaime Filer.
Oh my gosh, stop. Jace Lopez is so much more attractive.
He'll be on my list next.
Yeah. We'll have to get Jace to interview you. Anyway, we wanted to talk today about working and living with your business partner, because in TRM, we actually have been getting a lot more husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. Like, even if they didn't start out as business partners, often a business will be going so well, similar to ours, and we'll get to that, the person who started the business will say to their significant other, like, hey, do you want to just quit your job and work for the business? And that they will start incorporating their significant other in the daily operations, which I just think is super freaking cool. So our story, bit of a background. I came from Canada. As you guys know, I immigrated to America specifically to be with Katie. And as per the rules of immigration, I was not allowed to hold on to my Canadian job anymore. I needed to start making the American government some money. So that's when I started Filer Fitness in January of 2019. And what were you doing?
Oh, in 2019, I was still in graduate school. So I was on the path to becoming a speech pathologist. Almost done, actually, at that point,
yeah.
I think. Not in fitness at all. I wasn't even training. You
were like barely.
I was doing Orange Theory maybe 3 times a week and following you around the gym like a lost puppy 2 days a week.
Yeah. But then, so I have been with you guys, again, you guys know I've been with TRM since January of 2019, still with TRM going on 5 years now. And Mathew just helped me build my business consistently. We were hitting, I remember hitting 1,500 and then 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 all in the first year of being in TRM. And I think you were watching me being like, this is cool.
I think the biggest thing that I remember from that period of our life was when you decided to increase your prices with Mathew's guidance from $75 a month to $199.
Yeah, and even that was such a big deal.
It gave me so much anxiety.
Oh my God, everyone's going to leave me.
No one's going to pay me that.
Yeah. But again, Mathew just helped me grow and scale and optimize without losing that personal touch, which was also really important to me. So in 2021, you got your OCB Pro card. Like you really just latched onto the sport of bodybuilding.
Yeah. Within 2 years, I said, people do what to get what with their bodies? Hell no. To, okay, here I am now an OCB Pro.
Right. So Natty Pro, which, as you know, from being in the fitness industry, those of you listening, often when you develop your body to a certain extent, people just ask you to coach them. Like whether or not you're advertising that you're a coach, whether or not you're even certified to be a coach, people are like, how did you do it? Can you teach me? And that's
exactly what happened. I had 2 people reach out to me on Instagram and said, hey, can you coach me? And I said, no, I'm not a coach. I don't have any certifications. I just did this. And they said, yeah, but you had the motivation and the dedication to do it. Can you teach us how to do that? I said, heck yes, I can definitely teach you how to do that.
Yeah. So we ran those clients through my Stripe, my engine, my prices at the time.
Your programming.
My programming. Katie was essentially just the heartbeat of the program, but it was like my macros and my training. But then these people were getting results. You fell in love with coaching.
Hard and fast, head over heels in love with coaching. Yes.
So how did you evolve? I don't even remember how 2 clients turned into 5 into 15.
So I don't remember that either, but I remember me working for you as your first employee in 2022, technically, when you officially legally hired me on,
Right.
and said, hey, you can essentially be my VA. And that's kind of where I started dipping my toes into the business. I was doing essentially virtual assistant style responsibilities.
Yes.
While I had my own roster of 5-ish at that point, clients that I was handling. And it just grew to the point where I told you I can't take on more responsibility in the business if I keep my full-time job.
You did say that. I want to backtrack just for a second. From a business standpoint, guys, you're going to want to make sure that you, I don't want to say do this legally, because honestly, I wouldn't know an illegal way to do it, but Katie's right. As per my accountant and financial advisor, I essentially had to put her on the payroll. So I remember I gave you a Venmo of $200 every month, and I just tagged it social media so that when our accountant looked at our books at the end of the year, I essentially was paying a staff, or it was it still is a contractor position, but this benefits you because you get a write-off as essentially your significant other is a contracted employee. So they get the benefit because they're making money. You get the benefit because it's a write-off, but also now, which we learned, if you take your quote unquote contractor on vacation, it now becomes a business expense. So when Katie and I would go to New York, when we went to Cancun, every meal that we had, every time, as long as we took a photo, as long as we posted on social media, as long as one of us was interacting with a client, it was now a business trip. So it was just so advantageous to do that. Okay. So in 2022, that's when you kind of became full. So when you got, what happened?
No, I think in 2022 is when we decided I was going to go part-time.
Right. That was it. Okay.
So I dropped down to 3 days a week. And then it's great timing because officially a year ago, so in February 14th of 2023, is when you essentially handed me an offer letter and said, leave your job and work full-time for me.
Right. So even at that point, kind of starting in the beginning of 2023, she was not my VA anymore. She just had enough clients on her own that she could no longer answer my DMs, pop around in our Facebook group, do that sort of thing, because she was almost completely transitioning to coach. Mm-hmm. And then you decided that was really something that you wanted to pursue. You gave yourself a roster cap, and then essentially the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However,
but
the roles keep
evolving
and evolving. Yeah. So because you have done such an incredible job scaling as a business owner and using everything that TRM has taught you and more, we now have more coaches underneath us. So my role has shifted to a little bit more, what would you call it? Management almost?
You're head coach.
Head coach.
But I'd say supervisor.
Supervising.
Yeah.
Yeah. So assisting the team members that we've now brought on, which are 2 more assistant coaches.
Yeah. So that was also something, guys, we say this in TRM all the time, right? Sometimes you have to learn trial by fire. You have to learn from mistakes. So I officially hired Katie March 1st because 2023, because she did not want to be in her other job anymore and she just loved coaching. And we hired 2 assistant coaches on May 1st of 2023. So 60 days later, within a span of 60 days or 61 days, I took on 3 employees. I was absolutely not ready for that. There were no SOPs. And again, learning lesson, pause the podcast, start taking notes. Just because you hire your significant other as something within your business doesn't mean you don't need an SOP. Katie was picking up all of these strategies that I was teaching her, not formally, just by being in the same room as me on a sales call. She knew how to run her own sales call. So I could almost, unfortunately, take for granted the fact that she'd picked up so much from TRM. But the problem is, when you have 2 more employees, you can't just be like, well, hey, can you live with me 24/7 for 6 years and just kind of pick up what I know? You need that stuff on paper. And you can speak to the fact that this was a deficit on my part as a boss and a business owner.
As a CEO, absolutely. But it goes back to systems in general. When you jump into something without having the solid systems down, you are going to learn by making mistakes. Now, learning by making mistakes is good to a point, but not when it starts to affect your business.
Yeah. And it makes you look disorganized to your employees as well.
Correct. So having set systems in place, SOPs for employees, making sure that those, you kind of work through those, spending the time to do that is 100% worth it.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we did was I sent her, shout out to Amanda. I sent Katie Amanda's SOP and I said, hey, make this sound like Filer Fitness.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then again, from there, I think, again, I threw you into the role of head coach because you looked at me and you're like, so are you going to teach them what to do? And I said, I have 50 of my own clients and I'm doing sales calls. Absolutely. I'm not. I guess you're the head coach now.
Yeah. So I took that role on and I actually really enjoy it because at my core and what I did prior to working for Filer Fitness was teaching and coaching in a different way, but like teaching others. So I think I took on the role as head coach to help guide our assistants because it came so naturally to me.
Yeah. You
and
are
I really
a teacher.
enjoy it.
You're an instructor for sure. So let's talk about, speaking of my deficits, what is something that you, talking as the significant other of a business owner, what areas do you typically see where we could use some improvement? Like what could we do better? Just forget the partner part of things for a second. Just as a business owner, what can we do better?
Just as a business owner.
Yeah. So for example, making the SOPs in advance before we hire our first employees, not taking certain things for granted.
Yeah. Setting expectations black and white, very clear. I think as a business owner, sometimes, especially in the world of coaching, your heart can get in the way very easily.
Yeah.
So setting expectations in black and white as a business owner, obviously you probably do that with your clients. When you onboard a new client, you have a very specific process. It's the same working within a business. As a CEO, have your expectations, have your processes, have your systems very black and white so that not only do you know exactly what's expected of your assistants or your employees, but your employees know. That's one thing that we are learning as we continue to grow our team, as we continue to bring people on, is that those expectations up front in black and white, so there's no question.
Yeah.
And then being very clear with our communication and transparent, which is one of our
core values
that we constantly have to remind ourselves of. And that's okay. Again, it's the heart getting in the way, but that's part of coaching. You're not a coach without heart. So you just have to make sure that you're making sure those boundaries are clear.
So that's also really important. And a perfect segue into the significant other / business partner is, even when I had expectations and I said, hey, Katie, here's the expectation. I expected it to be done my way. And you just expected it to be done in general. And that was really hard for me to get over, that just like any other employee, you and I don't have the same process. However, another employee would honestly listen to me a little bit better. If I say, I want it done my way, an employee would say, absolutely, boss.
As long as you set that way clear. Yes. However, that was something that you work on still, letting go of the reins. And as the CEO, as a business owner, you have to do that. That thought of nobody's going to do it as best as I can. You have to let go of that. And you have to let people at least do it how you tell them to do it, or they're going to do it their own way. But you're right. That was a learning curve for sure.
Yeah. And I think in that circumstance, it is really important to explain, if you want it done your way for a particular reason, you explain why.
Yeah. Like,
hey, immediately after I send you this information, I need you to put them in the engine. I need you to ask them for a photo, and I need you to XYZ. It's in this logical order because, right? Like yesterday, we had a thing where I asked you for a client photo so that we can do a welcome to the team post. And you're like, why do I have to do it now? And I said, because Asia's done 2 in a row. Danny did 2 in a row. And I need yours to make the Instagram stories sequential. And you're like, okay, fine. I understand now why I have to post in this order.
Love me some sequential story posts.
Right.
Yeah. That hit home.
Okay. So then let's transition to the personal life, because again, this is something where I had a steeper learning curve.
Yeah. And it starts with exactly the same thing, communication and expectations. If I expect you to shut your laptop and put your phone when I do, but I don't tell you that, I'm not allowed to get mad at you. I'm not allowed to say, hey, you're not my boss anymore. Now you're my wife. And you should know that if I don't set that clear communication with you, if I don't say, hey, at 6 o'clock, everything's getting shut down and I really would like your attention and energy for the rest of the evening.
Yep.
Now, of course, if I say that and you still do it, then you can't get mad at me when I poke you and say, hey, it's wife time.
Yeah.
So I think that specifically is one of the things that we have recently overcome and we're still working on, but that was a big one to integrate the business with the personal so that we both feel supported in both areas.
Yep. One thing I noticed, and this was, I don't want to say it was a relief, but I used to hate working on weekends, not because I hated working, but because you weren't. And now that you have the client load that you do, it is reassuring and relieving for me when you say on even a Sunday at like 5 p.m., hey, I have 3 check-ins and then we can start the movie. I'm like, amazing, because there were a couple of things that I wanted to do, but I would have felt guilty if only one of us was working and I didn't want to open my laptop on a Sunday. But now it's 3 check-ins. We both, right? Again, you say, I will be done after 3 check-ins, almost as like you have 17 minutes to get your shit done, Jamie.
It's funny. I didn't remember how upset that made me until you just mentioned that. Prior, when I was working in the hospital before coaching, I would come home on a Friday and be like, thank God I don't have to work for the next 2.5 days. Yet you would be busy in the office. And I forgot how much that tore at me because you couldn't shut off.
Yeah.
And you didn't shut off. You couldn't shut off at that time because you hadn't scaled your business. You had to work. You had to pay the bills. So anybody who's listening, if you have a partner that is not in your business, that is not coaching, that is not part of what you're doing, try to remember that there's that other side where they probably understand that you have to work, but it's hard because in their head, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, they're shut down on Friday. It's so hard to get out of that thinking. Because now I work a little bit every day of the week and I love it.
Yeah.
I never feel like I have to work. I never feel like I have to take a day off, but it's such a different perspective and experience that I had no idea I didn't know how to put myself in your shoes until I was actually doing it.
Yeah. As we wind down on time, I would love for you to give a piece of advice. Is there a way, because I know that I've done this, I'm guilty of it. I've spoken to you in a patronizing tone when I don't tell you that I have my boss hat on rather than my wife hat. And I speak to you the way I would nobody should ever speak to, you know what I mean? I do. Okay, can you put the words in my mouth, what I'm trying to say? What advice would you give? How can I ask you to do something kindly, but also not blur the lines between I need this task done, but you're my wife and I'd like to be affectionate with you at dinner. You know what I mean?
So that in order to successfully do that, you have to back up and set your boundaries of work and home time. So for us, we have a very hard and fast rule that as soon as our nighttime routine starts, like when we're watching our last episode and we're going to walk the dogs and we're going to get ready for bed, there's no more work talk.
Yeah,
but we've talked about that. We've spoken about that and we said, no more work talk. If it comes to mind, you write it down and we can talk about it in the morning.
Yeah.
Same with our morning routine. At breakfast, there is no work talk. You have to wait until breakfast is done. I'm done rolling my face and doing my stretches, whatever it is that day to bring up client stuff. So Once you set those expectations, I know the rest of the day, those hours in between during daylight, you're allowed to ask me to do anything responsibility wise. Now, specifically how to do that, like, hey, I have a task for you. Do you have space? Something like that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I have a list of things to do. Do you have some time today?
Busy today, yeah.
Because for us specifically, how we work together is you don't know everything I'm going to do every day. You don't micromanage, which has been really great. You've done a good job working on that.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're asking your partner, and I guess this comes to anything, whether it's your partner in business and your partner in life or just your partner in business, just check in. It's a respect thing. They're probably going to say yes, but just check in and say, hey, do you have the space and the energy? I have a task list. Can I give this to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. And I think another thing we should clarify is, although we are both kind of co-owners of the business, we still have two very different roles. We don't do the same thing. What do we say? I'm more the CEO, you're COO, Chief Operations Officer. Like Katie is, and then, okay, so I would be CEO and CFO. I deal with all finances, make sure that invoicing goes through.
Hiring
and firing. But then you make sure that the day-to-day operations, like the people that we hire and fire,
are doing their job.
Exactly. So, and that all of the boxes are checked at the end of the day for social media, leads, our VA and setter, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. So again, super huge opportunity for growth there is don't step on each other's toes. Like if I've assigned Katie the role of COO, don't start micromanaging. If there's a problem, trust that they will come to you as CEO. But there, again, transparent communication, clear boundaries and expectations. And is there something else that did I miss something?
No, that was pretty much what we dove deep on today. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on, Katie. Appreciate your brilliant insight, your honesty, your transparent communication. You're amazing, guys. If you want to see how we work together and how we live together, where can people follow you? What's your Instagram?
_Katie Filer.
And then I am at JAIM and the number's 91, JAIM91. We are at Trainer Revenue Multiplier. Really hope that this podcast, this specific episode was helpful for you guys to learn how to navigate your relationships and your business so that neither one blow up if you decide that you want your partner to become part of your business. If you like what you heard, please make sure you rate, subscribe, share on social media. We will share right back to our stories. We appreciate you guys being part of our team. And until the next episode, have the best rest of your day.